Aimee Lavigne, welcome to the Authors on Audio podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. I'm super excited to talk about your book, A Vision of Flame,
There it
which
is.
I have read, and it is so good. It's so good. It is like one of the most like delicious romanticises I've read in a while. It was
Oh,
I
thank
got
you.
I got super addicted. Like I really did. I'm not even trying to flatter you anymore. I had so much fun reading this book. So I guess to start things off, can you tell me about kind of how you got started on your writing journey and how you landed on romantasy and spicy romantasy? Like just tell me all about it.
So, I'm a teacher, like I have told you before. And I last school year switched into a different position that wasn't in the classroom anymore. And it was a lot less difficult of a position. And I found myself needing a creative outlet because I had like all of this free space in my head. And I had always thought, like, if I could do world building, I could probably write a book. And I finally like had the mental energy to start thinking about world building and designing this little world that I made. Um, and I've always loved fantasy. And then I got into like ACOTAR, um, and that was it's such a like overwhelming series of just I want to be in this world. And then I needed to start writing in that world. This is one of my favorite books in the whole world is The Two Princesses of Bamar, if I'm saying that right. This was like my favorite book as a kid. And I got this special edition and like that's what I wanted, right? Like you've got a princess, you've got dragons, ogres, griffins, all of this. This is the world that I want to live in. So, like that's the world I wanted to write in too, but with some spice. This is like a middle grade book. Obviously, I'm not writing that.
For
So the
sure.
adult version of that is what I wanted.
Yeah. We got to make it a little bit more zesty. So it sounds like if I'm hearing you correctly that like you kind of started with the world and built the story into that world. Is that sort of the order you went in?
Yeah, I was thinking about um, like the magic system first. So thinking about ACOTAR, they have the solar courts and the seasonal courts. There's also I really love the book Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa, and she had more worlds. There's like a floral court and a fauna court, and I was thinking like what would I want to do because you don't want to just copy somebody else's, even though there's a lot of similarity between all the magic systems. So I thought of the elements first. So fire, water, air, earth. It's like I could do something with that, but what would like the other kingdom be? And that's where the illusions came through. So auditory, visual, taste, and smell. Just what if we could create illusions? So I've got these two kingdoms, and then I came up with Evelyn, and she has fire magic, but she can't experience the illusion magic of the other kingdom. And it all kind of spiraled from there.
Yeah, boy, did it. It definitely spirals from there because, yeah, it's so interesting hearing you lay out because it does, like everything you just described, it's sort of what you get in the beginning of the book, and then it just kind of snowballs. So, is this the first book you've ever written then?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. So, how would you say like your writing has evolved from you kind of like incepting these ideas and then percolating in your brain to having this final finished work of art?
That's a hard question because I haven't been doing this very long, but I've finished writing book 2. Like I've gotten through a few drafts of that one, and it's I think it's becoming easier to write, but I don't know if that's just because I have all the world building done because that's the hard part, like figuring out what these kingdoms are. Um, but I always try to keep in mind when I'm writing to make things worse for the characters and the situations and whatever it is. Just make it worse. And that was a lot of the advice I got from my husband for the first draft of A Vision of Flame. Just how can we make this more stressful, more dramatic, more disgusting in some of the horror bits? So I'm trying to keep more of that in mind. And like all the feedback I've gotten from my developmental editor and my copy editor, um, I think I'm getting better just learning from them.
Yeah, and I think as a reader, you something I am always craving. I want to be like pulled to more extreme emotions. I think I don't love a book where I feels like it's kind of playing it safe um or if it feels too cookie cutter, like you said earlier, you don't want to feel like you're just copying things from other books. And I think that's something I loved about A Vision of Flame because when you read the book, like when you are outraged, you are actually outraged and like throwing the book across the room. These are not, the characters don't experience little misunderstandings that you can fix in a chapter or two. They have big, serious problems. And yeah, I'm super happy to hear you've read book two because the ending just had me like pulling, absolutely pulling out my hair. Unfair. So you said romantasy because you loved the world building, you read ACOTAR. Do you ever have like an itch to write outside romantasy? Do you feel like you will be a romantasy writer? How does that feel for you?
I have a lot of ideas for contemporary rom-coms, but every time I try to sit down and write one, it doesn't feel right to me. I think because I like the escapism of fantasy. So if I'm trying to write contemporary, then I'm thinking about like, well, with my main character, what grocery store would they go shopping at? And what is their job and what are they stressed about? And what bills are they behind on? And it's like I don't really want to think about all of that. So I have these ideas. So like maybe eventually I'll want to do that, but I think romantasy is just kind of where my heart is. When I Before I started writing this book, I did write a few very short stories, and they were mostly horror. Um, there's a program on Readsy where they do weekly writing prompts, and you can enter short stories. And I did like 7 stories for them before I started writing my novel, and those were more horror focused, which was kind of fun.
That actually makes so much sense. I don't know that I'd say scary per se, but there are some like intense, clearly like horror adjacent moments in A Vision of Flame. Would you say that was like inspired by some of your past as a horror writer?
I think so. And my husband is a horror writer, so I always want to impress him. So it's like, let's make this scary and icky.
That's so fun. I actually love like I read all over the place, primarily fantasy for sure, but I would say secondary is probably horror. I love the genre so much, and I think it's actually hard to kind of pin down. Like I don't think I could ever write a horror book because I don't know. I just don't think my brain works that way.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd want to write a full horror, but I like having my elements. Enough to have a list of trigger warnings at the beginning of my book.
Yeah, I don't even bother reading books without trigger warnings anymore. I just know I'm not. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Let's talk about the book a little bit more. I want to talk about Evelyn specifically. I guess like just
There's
tell
my
me how
girl.
you can. There she is. We love her. She's such an awesome female lead because she is so messy. That's like the word that keeps coming to mind when I think of her. It's not that she's not smart or not capable, she is, but you give her room to make bad choices,
Mhm.
like the way any person would. So, can you just talk to me about Evelyn, like how you came up with her, how you kind of landed on this sort of unique path for female lead in a romantasy? Just tell me all about her.
It was really important to me that all of her decisions made sense in context, because that's such a pet peeve of mine in other stories where it's like, I really don't know why that character made that choice. That doesn't make any sense. With Evelyn, she makes maybe some pretty bad decisions, but you always understand why she did it. and what her motivation was, what she was trying to do. A lot of times she was trying to fix a different decision that she already made. And I kind of compare her to a gambler who just like wants to make one more bet and win that one, and then that'll fix everything. But it never works out. So she dug this huge hole for herself. And it ended up being a little bit worse than I even planned initially. So I can't talk too much about the very ending of the book, right? But when I was planning the book, I figured out like how to defeat the villain at the end. And that was like as far as I went with planning. I'm very much a pantser with writing. So it's like I knew what would happen with that. I didn't think about what would happen after that big climax of the story. And then I got to like the final chapter, and like there's that scene with Evelyn and Leo. And I was like, "Oh, we can't fix everything right now. That wouldn't work for them to just be okay. There's so much to forgive, and maybe so much that can't be forgiven because of all of her choices." My poor Evelyn. So this was supposed to be a 4-book series, and it ended up turning into a 5-book series because I needed to add another one just to solve this big mess that she made, basically.
Yeah, I know I messaged you about the scene you're talking about, and I I love that part so much because it does feel very honest. And I think that's what readers relate to so much when they read about Evelyn is just she feels very honest and very relatable. I think we've all been in that place where you just dig a hole for yourself, and at some point it's so deep you don't even know how to climb out of it anymore.
You just don't know what to do, and Evelyn didn't know what to do. So I tried to make her very real, and we can't fix all of our problems. Like just saying I'm sorry doesn't fix all of our problems.
Was there any were there any like specific female leads in Romantasy that inspired Evelyn or that you felt like you were kind of building upon? Or was she just someone who you felt like was totally unique and completely her own?
I didn't intentionally model her after anyone else. There are a lot of strong female main characters out there. Um, she's very snarky. She's very sassy. She's just kind of a brat, and I had fun with that. All of my characters sort of just were in my head. Like, I had to start from somewhere, but eventually they just are in there, and they feel like such real people. And some of the things that they say, it's like, I'll technically type it. It's like I'm writing it, but it doesn't feel like it's something I'm saying. It's just that's what they're saying, and ooh, that was mean. That was not very nice. That was not a good thing to say. But that's what they would say in the moment. So Evelyn is just very real in my head, messy and all. But she's not intentionally modeled after anybody.
Because she's such an interesting contrast to Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I read like Sisters in Romantasy, my mind goes to the Archeron sisters and how they're like all pretty uniquely laid out, and a little bit Hannah gives me like Elaine vibes, obviously, because it's a little more of that like kind of soft put together feeling where Evelyn almost felt like a cross between Nesta and Feyre to me.
Yeah, that's kind of what I had thought, because Evelyn doesn't perfectly align with Feyre or Nesta, but she's got a lot of the attitude. But I also think Feyre and Nesta were more prepared to be main characters, whereas Evelyn was not ready for all of this. She was just kind of a naive character in the beginning. She showed up thinking, like, Hannah's doing her betrothal. I'm just going to hang out in this cool, sunny kingdom and maybe go make out with a guard, and it's going to be great. And then she gets shoved into like a murder mystery and all this political scandal, and she wasn't ready for it. Compared to like a Katniss type character who the foundation was there for her to lead a whole movement. Evelyn really wasn't ready for that. And that's what a lot of my characters really are based in, is just not being prepared for being a main character. And that's even more important with Hannah. I love Hannah so much. I need all the readers to trust me about book two. Book two is in Hannah's point of view, and it picks up right where we left off. Hannah is such an interesting, amazing character. We don't get to see a lot of her in the first book. So I know there's been a lot of like skeptical reactions to like, why is Hannah going to be the next main character? But if we're thinking about ACOTAR, I would love to see a book from Elaine's point of view. I want to know what that's about. And like in the third ACOTAR book, without spoilers, Elaine does something pretty badass at the end of the book that Nesta gets credit for. So Elaine actually is this really interesting, strong, amazing character, and she's just kind of seen as the flower girl. It's like she's so much more complex, and that's how Hannah is too. Like we're gonna get to see Hannah be a badass and be such a strong character, but she's also not prepared for that. And I love that dynamic of you weren't meant to be a main character, but this is the world that you're shoved into. Because I think that's how life works too. It's like whether you're ready or not, here's what's happening.
Totally. And I think too, because Hannah, maybe she like felt more prepared to like be a queen and be in that political, realm of things where it was like almost more formality. And I have no idea where book two's going, but it sounds like maybe she's going to be put in situations that are a little bit more challenging than what she had initially thought her role was going to be in the first book. Am I on track there, or am I a little bit off?
So she mostly has just been like doing what she's been told to do.
Mhm.
Like she's kind of expected to marry a prince or become a queen someday. Even though she has only been a princess for like 2 months because of all the stuff that's been happening. But she hasn't ever really been given the opportunity to do anything else. And no one has been asking, what do you want your life to look like? And she's starting to realize, like, just doing what she's told and what she's expected to do and being the proper pretty princess isn't actually getting her what she wants. So we get to see more of Hannah making her own choices.
I almost feel like female main characters have been pigeonholed all over again into only being able to exist as one archetype, when women exist as like a broad spectrum, where some women are super sassy and fierce, like Evelyn, which is awesome and wonderful, and I love to see them represented in literature, or some women maybe just represent themselves a little more different, whether it's more feminine or they have different ways of showing their strength. So I really like to see sort of a broader spectrum of female characters where they're able to kind of express themselves in whatever way feels most honest to them. You know what I mean?
With my characters, so I didn't want another Feyre or another Ceres. So, like, Evelyn and Hannah are in pretty dresses the whole time. We are not, like, learning how to fight. We're not going to battle. They're not even wearing pants. Like, but they are still deadly.
Hmm.
So that was more interesting to me. Like, you don't have to be battle ready when you have this magic. Like, let's see what fire magic can do instead of a training sequence of how to use a sword and a dagger and a bow and arrow. So I wanted something different where they can be feminine and deadly.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that there was no like training sequence, but I actually love that again because it's new and it's different and it still feels like romantasy, but it doesn't feel like another cookie cutter romantasy book that like checks all the boxes. It really does exist on its own within the genre. I want to talk about Leo a little bit because you have three male leads, hallelujah, which is wonderful. I don't know if there he is. Um, Leo was an interesting character for me too because he's also like, again, just in the spirit of talking about how your book is unique and the characters are unique. He's not just like this shadow daddy that we've seen a billion times across the fantasy genres that like he also feels kind of unprepared to take on the role that's been thrust onto him. So talk to me about Leo a little bit and what's going on with inside of him and kind of what makes him tick as a character.
So Leo was the second prince in this family. So he, if you've heard like the heir and the spare, he was never meant to be more than just the second prince. And then his brother died like a few years before my book started. So he already had his life completely changed around. Like now you're in line to like lead the kingdom, right? I realize it's it's technically a spoiler that he's a prince. But also like in his official portrait, he's wearing a crown. Readers will know in the first three chapters probably that he's the prince, even though we don't technically know that right away.
Yeah, I did predict that just for the record. That was more like it was more about the characters discovering, his secret identity as opposed to the secret identity itself.
Yeah.
At least that's how I interpret it.
Like I wasn't really trying to hide that, but that was just Evelyn not noticing things that she probably should have picked up on. But yeah, Leo is just not prepared for any of this. He is trying to do his best. And I think there are actually a lot of parallels between him and Hannah in just how they're trying to get through the world and make their parents proud and do what they're supposed to do and be honorable. But that isn't working, especially in the second half of the book, just all these horrible things that are happening that Leo does not handle well. I think like first act Leo is very different than the rest of the book because he starts out just kind of a Prince Charming character, but then so many awful things happen and by the end of the book he's just done. He's everyone's a little bit broken at the end of the book.
I mean, I definitely felt for Leo, and it almost seems like it's just sort of this sad thing because it sort of seems like as he's trying to break out and make decisions for himself, it almost seems like the worst things go for him, which is like so sad. I'm sure as a writer, I know you have like everything worked out and taken care of. Um, but yeah, definitely hoping to see I guess I don't even know exactly what I'm hoping to see from Leo. I guess it would be some version of him almost figuring out who he is. Like it almost seems like he's insecure in his identity. Is that what you were going for as a writer?
Not intentionally, but that's where it ended up.
Hmm.
A lot of my book was a surprise to me, too. Um, a lot of the scenes with Leo in the second half were difficult to write because I hadn't planned on so much stress between him and Evelyn. And there were a couple scenes where I was writing and I planned, like, okay, I need just like a sweet scene between them where they're just happy and cute and we need to go do a thing. And then as I was writing, like they started fighting. And that was often not planned at all. It was just how Evelyn was feeling at the time. It was like there was a block in my head that she wouldn't let me go forward unless she got to say what she was upset about. So it was supposed to not be as complicated as it was with Leo.
Hmm.
But that's where the characters went with all of this. And I think their reactions are very genuine for them.
What do you think it is about Evelyn and Leo specifically that like leads to there being kind of that like friction between them?
I think like as they're both trying to figure out who they are and where they're going and what they're doing, they're realizing that they're not on the same page. And in the beginning they were so cute in the beginning of the story, but a lot of that was based on a lie. So then once they got
Mm.
into the reality of it, it's like maybe they're not as naturally compatible as they thought. It's kind of like some of the reality dating shows where when they're super isolated, like in The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, they're in the beautiful mansion and going on these wonderful dates. Everything's great. And then they go to the real world and have to go shopping together. And they realize this isn't going great. He's kind of annoying. And just figuring out the reality of, ooh, this is a lot harder than we thought, than when we were just sort of sneaking around.
It's almost like what happens after Happily Ever After,
Mhm.
which is always such an interesting story. I don't know. Have you ever seen the musical Into the Woods?
Yes.
Yeah, that's like a great example. It almost reminds me of what you're talking about, where it's like you have Act One, which is like, here's happily ever after, everyone gets together, and then you have Act Two, where it's like, okay, but what's the reality of it? And I got that same sense with your characters, where it just it it doesn't end on a simple note, like it ends on a realistic note, given the context of the world that you built. I definitely need to talk about my boyfriend Damien, my husband. I don't know if you got your picture of
And
him.
there he
There
is.
he is. My favorite. And there were I think I'm like trying to think what was it about him that made me go like that's the one that I like the most. I think um he's very understanding. Like with Leo sometimes I felt like he just wasn't very understanding, or it was hard for him to, you know, see other people's perspectives, where Damien, he just was more open-minded. What is it about Evelyn? Because he's drawn to Evelyn and he's very protective of her. Where does that come from for him?
There are so many layers to that question and that answer, and some of them I can talk about, and some of them I can't. Um, so he is naturally a very protective person, especially of women. He didn't have the best upbringing. We see his father a little bit in the book, who's just not a good person. So Damien has always been protective of his mother and his sisters. So it's kind of a natural next step to be protective of Evelyn and any other women coming in. When I originally came up with Damien, I really just wanted a side character in Leo's life. And I had kind of Cassian slash Azriel in mind. I wanted kind of a combo of them. And with Damien and Evelyn, I was thinking of like Feyre and Cassian because I really love their friendship, where it is kind of flirty, but like they're friends and they're protective of each other. And then it got a lot more complicated because he sort of turned into one of the MMCs, whereas it was Leo and Hayden, and then Damien kind of showed up. It's like, I'm here too. I want like equal billing. So that was an interesting dynamic of writing him. I love Damien so much. He is so fun to write. He's such a problem in a lot of ways, but like his moral compass is very strong within his mind, I think.
I mean by he's such a problem in a lot of ways. Expand on that for me.
Like he is violent. Like he is very willing to hurt people if they are threatening someone that he cares about. So he's very much the guard dog character, and I keep looking down at his picture. I should just hold it up more. Um, like he has a sword in his official portrait for a reason. So he's gonna do whatever he needs to do. So he can. I'm so glad that he's sort of the fan favorite because he could be controversial. I think maybe how he responds to things, like he does behead someone at one point, and that's probably not the best reaction to whatever is going on. But I really liked that scene because one of my pet peeves in books that comes up more in like YA books is like letting the villain go because then they always show up again and become a bigger problem.
Mhm.
So I love Damien's character where he will just eliminate the threat. It's like we're not talking about it. We're just this is done. You're going to be safe.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's what I liked about him. It's funny, like you're saying, like maybe he could be a little controversial and stuff. It shows, like, I don't know what a toxic reader I am, where I'm just like, yeah, behead him. That's good. Like he was talking mean about the female lead. He's got to go. Like, but
He would not work in he wouldn't work in a contemporary romance.
no, maybe not, right? Like I think it is a very specific brand of like male warrior. I didn't see it on my first read, but now that you mentioned the Cassian Azrael inspiration, I totally see it where it's just this like just this big strong protector type. Do you feel like because he's a little hot-headed maybe and Evelyn's a little hot-headed, is that like maybe part of what connects them to each other?
I think so. I sort of see Evelyn and Damien. The comparison that I came up with these two is they're both sort of a wildfire on their own, but then you put them together and it actually calms them both down. Like they
Mm.
feel better when they're together and they can handle things better together. But then Evelyn is trying so hard to manage things on her own. Whereas in a lot of the scenes, if she had just told Damien what was going on, he probably would have been able to fix the problem a lot sooner.
There were so many moments where I was like, I understood why she maybe had a difficult time confiding in Leo. Um, Definitely Hayden. We haven't talked about Hayden much, but he's another male lead who maybe I would say he gives more of like the shadow daddy vibes than the other two male leads. But what kept her back from confiding in Damien? Because he felt so much more open to me.
I think sometimes Evelyn was just embarrassed to have another mess on her hands. And Damien spends so much time helping her that she didn't want to need more help. Like I definitely feel that sometimes. Which is I don't want to need somebody else right now. I want to be able to figure it out on my own. And that's a very stubborn thing for Evelyn. And it wasn't the right choice, but that's kind of how she dealt with the world.
Before we move on to talk about indie publishing, did you want to talk about Hayden a little bit more? I know he's kind of like the other main character we've sort of breezed over. So why don't you go ahead and hold up his picture? Um, Talk to me a little bit about the inspiration there. He just feels a little more, I don't want to say evil's the word that's coming to mind, but it's just like he has that like darkness, right? What was kind of the inspiration for him?
He was there to be a problem.
Hmm.
Because we had like Evelyn and Leo, and things were going pretty good with them. And then Hayden just sort of bulldozes his way in there. And he, in my original ideas, was not going to be as prominent. There's a time when he comes back when she asks him to. Like she is upset, Evelyn's upset, and she sends him a letter asking him to come back. And that part wasn't in my original plan, but so much happened during that time. Like when we see the dragons and stuff, that whole section like wasn't in my original plan. So Hayden also made himself a lot more important to Evelyn specifically. He was always going to be important to the plot, but he became more of a main character for Evelyn.
No, I
These
feel like
characters don't listen to me at all. They never listen to me.
no, I was just gonna say like they just don't want to stay side characters for long. They absolutely like will forge their own path to like main character energy, which I mean, good for them. So let's shift to talking about what getting this book published has been like for you.
So I pursued traditional publishing originally. Last summer, I sent out 20 queries, which isn't very many. Like you can send out 100 or 200. Some people really, really go a long time with that. And I got so frustrated with it so quickly. It's like, I'm going to do at least 20 and then I'm going to stop. And if it doesn't work out, fine. So I was always open to indie publishing. I got a lot of rejections, and that hurts every single time. Even when you're expecting it and you know, like, statistically, I'm probably not going to get anything, every rejection email still hurts. And then I finally got a full manuscript request. So I was really excited about that. But then I never heard back from the agent. I waited like 4 months and I sent a follow up email just with a nudge, like, hey, any updates? And she didn't respond to that either. So I waited like another 6 weeks or so, and I finally just pulled the query. I was like,
Mm.
I'm done waiting for permission to put my book into the world.
Mm.
I'm just gonna do it. And then I sort of hurried with everything after that. So it was April 2nd that I announced on Instagram that I was going to self publish. And then the book came out June 2nd. So it was a very quick turnaround. But I just wanted the book out there. I wanted to move forward after so many months of waiting around and being stuck. Because when I had the query out, I was still getting everything ready. I went through all the editing and I had the cover and the art was done. I was ready to go. So it's like we're just gonna do it. Let's go.
So, what are some mistakes you've made along the way that maybe you would use it as advice to other aspiring indie authors or things you wish you would have known?
I don't think there's anything I really regret, but there's stuff that I learned from. I found a company sort of early on that did beta reading, but for a fee, so you had to pay for it. Um, and I did get some good feedback. Had two readers. One of them hated Damien, absolutely hated Damien. And that was really confusing to me because of all the characters, if you're going to hate someone, it's not going to be Damien. Um, they thought he was just all of the red flags. Like, what are you talking about? But then they adored Hayden and they were appalled with how some things went down with Hayden. I was like, are you sure that you read it? I was so confused. It's like I'm not sure this was worth the money I paid to have someone completely unknown read it, and then I didn't necessarily know if they were a true romantasy fan, so I might not recommend that company.
Yeah, that's super bizarre. And it also sounds like, obviously I haven't read the specific feedback, but it almost sounds like they weren't being very oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like impartial about it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like when I beta read for a few people before, and it feels like you try to be impartial and you try to just give constructive feedback that will help improve the story. It almost sounds like this person was kind of being a weird hater. Am I off there? Or...
Yeah, that's what it felt like. So it didn't seem super professional, and it felt like they missed the point of most of it.
Weird. I'm so sorry that happened to you. See, I mean, you already know because you were one of my beta readers, so you already know like the way I found my beta readers. I just kind of like mostly traded beta read for beta read with other writers. And yeah, I some people were like very direct with me, but yeah, I'm so sorry that happened. That
Yeah,
sucks.
it's really
And
weird.
yeah, and your book ended up great anyway, so you didn't even need them after all. So ha,
Yeah.
like their loss. Um, what about social media? How would you say navigating social media has been?
I've been doing my best. I think it does not come naturally to me. I don't do a lot of social media, or I didn't before this. I'm such an introvert. And I'm using a pen name. So it's like I'm not even showing all of my life
Hmm.
because I have to keep some things separate. So I have mostly just kind of looked at what other authors have done and not copied them, but try and get some similar themes of, oh, let's share art and quotes and try my best on this. It was a lot harder before I started asking for ARC readers, just before I had like an actual product to talk about.
Hmm.
because when you're just trying to advertise a book that isn't there, feels really awkward. But now that like people are reading it and I have such a great community now. Like my readers are amazing and I love when they send me messages and we get to talk about Damien and talk about Hayden and talk about Leo. So it's a lot more fun now that the book is actually out.
I bet that's something I struggle with. I was actually, even before we hopped on this podcast, I was like researching, like, okay, I know how to do Bookstagram, like I know how to do book reviews and stuff, but like I have no idea how to shift into like it's such a different ball game, like being an author
Mhm.
promoting a book. And I don't know how to do it either. I always thought your page looked great. Like just for the record, I was always like intrigued by your book. It's interesting because the more actually every single author I've spoken to on this podcast has felt unsure of themselves and in their relationship with social media in some way. But I've looked at all their Instagrams and been like, yeah, good. That looks like an author Instagram to me. So I think, yeah, I think some of the self-criticism is definitely, I don't know, just part of being human, maybe just part of being a writer at the end of the day.
I think it's like with food, how everything tastes better when someone else cooked it.
Mm,
So social media always looks better when it's not your own. It's
I
like
love that
mine
analogy.
feels awkward, but like, oh, they're amazing. They're doing everything right. But I'm not doing anything right. This is weird. But no, maybe we're all doing great. Who
Yeah.
knows?
We're at my favorite question. This is always the last question that I ask everyone. What are some of your other favorite books, inspirations, movies, just your favorite things to read?
So Rhapsodic is maybe one of my favorite romantasy books. And this is the one that made me want to start writing.
Ooh.
Because I read Akatar and I got sucked into that and I was excited, but I never felt like I didn't want to be Sarah J. Maas. Like that's kind of too high a bar. But then I read this, it was like, I can do that. I can write like her. I want to be her when I grow up. So I love this series, the Bargainer series, so much. I always recommend that one. And then the other one that I think sort of makes sense, even though my book is not a why choose. I have to keep saying that over and over and over because everyone wants it to be a why choose. But I love this series. Have you read this one?
It has been on my list for so long. I own it. I literally own it on my Kindle. Maybe I'll start it tonight, honestly, since you're recommending it right now.
I love it. It's such a fun series. It starts out as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but there's four princes because why choose is amazing. But two of the princes in there, Dayton and Farron, are also together, and they remind me so much of Damien and Nicholas in my series. And I
Oh yeah, I forgot about them. I like them too.
and book 3 is from Damien's perspective, so we're gonna see like more of his background with family and with Nicholas and stuff that happened during the war. And I'm really excited. I'm writing book 3 right now, and it's so traumatic and so good.
Yay! We love trauma in a book. It's my favorite.
I also just want everyone to read Sword Heart. The second book in this series is coming out this summer, I think, but this is just one of the best books ever. I love T. Kingfisher. So, highly recommend that one. And then, for sure, go read The Two Princesses of Bamar. This is the same author as Ella Enchanted, and this actually probably explains, like, Evelyn and Hannah. I think their dynamic probably came somewhere from my, like, 9-year-old brain of having the very obviously strong sister and then the sort of weaker but underestimated sister.
I'm adding all of those to my list. Aimee Lavigne, thank you so much for being on Authors on Audio. Everybody, please go pick up your copy of A Vision of Flame. It is so, so good. You're going to love it. Aimee, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.